reviews electricity tariff. These and other stories make up headline this morning. I am Rachel Igbo. We begin with the Vanguard newspaper, and I'll take it from the lead story. It says Labour, OPS, others haul as federal government raises electricity tariff. The kickers, hike ranges from 10% to 121.5%. We'll resist it. This is coming from NLC. And from TUC, another betrayal of trust. Increase will impede growth of real sector. Increase will impede growth of real sector, coming from Nasima. Wrong timing. This is coming from Sislek. Electricity pricing needs strategic approach, coming from LCCI. And PDP rejects hike, says it will worsen hardship. And the last kicker here says presidency source. The story can be found on page 5. And we have this picture of Sowore in court. The human rights activist Omoye Sowore coming out of Black Maria in handcuffs at Wuse Zone 2 Magistrate Court, Abuja, yesterday. Beside the picture, strange items litter 2021 budget. See details on page 10. And this is a report. West Africa dominates piracy in 2021. See inside page 4 the story. And below the picture, COVID-19. Nigeria records 57 deaths in 1 week. The kickers, 731 core members test positive, coming from the PTF, to punish 20,000 test defaulters. Edo records 113 recoveries, 5 deaths since second wave. See the details on page 8. We will move up above the masthead. On page 20, affair for Vanguard. COVID-19, closure of tertiary institutions, not the answer. The details on page 20. And on page 7, we spent human parts proceeds on drinks and phone. This is coming from a suspect. And on that same page, kidnappers abduct 20, kill 1 as police foil robbery in Nasarawa. Ohaneze election. Umahi backs Obiozo, says Buhari not against Igbo. Now to the last story on Vanguard newspaper on page 19. Federal government borrowed 3.2 trillion naira through treasury bills in 2020. All right, we move to Blueprint newspaper, and I'll take it from the lead story. It says ASU strike and COVID-19. 10 months after, life returns to Nigerians' varsities. The kickers, Unilorin, BUK, Uniben reopen soon. Lagos, Nasarawa, Enugu, Bauchi schools resume January 18. And mixed reactions greet plan resumption. See the details on page 6. And we have this picture of President Muhammadu Buhari right and State Councilor and Foreign Minister of the People's Republic of China, Wang Yi, during the latter's official visit to the President at the State House, Abuja. This happened on Tuesday. And below the picture is a report how airlines, others shared federal government's 5 billion naira palliatives fund. The details on page 5. And now to the bottom strip stories. Police begin probe of Akwa Ibom Deeper Life schoolboys torture. The details on page 7. And on page 5, 731 core members COVID-19 positive, coming from PTF. Intels to Atiku. Buhari never interfered in our businesses. See the details on page 23. And on page 14, 3 brothers arrested for killing security guard in Ogun State. We move up beside the masthead. Oil industry set for difficult times in 2021, according to experts. And the details can be found on page 22. On page 24, federal government denies 50% electricity tariff hike. Below the masthead, 1 killed, 20 travelers kidnapped in Nasarawa community. The kickers: pastor, 3 church members abducted, hunter killed in Delta. Troops neutralize bandits in Kaduna. The story starts from the front page, it continues on page 6. Now to the last story on Blueprint newspaper. Nigeria's debt profile hits $84.57 billion, coming from the DMO. The story is on page 22. Next is Leadership newspaper, and I'll take it below the masthead. Electricity consumers kick as the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission approves another tariff increase. The story starts from the front page, continues on page 4. On page 11, Customs reopens Ilela border for business. That is on page 11. And now to the lead story. COVID-19. Workers desert federal state secretariats. The kickers: federal government. China begins negotiation on vaccine. President Muhammadu Buhari approves establishment of oxygen plants in all states. 1 out of 5 persons tested in Nigeria has virus. This is coming from the WHO. Adamawa warns of another lockdown. Police raid nightclubs. Arrest violators of protocols in Lagos. The details can be found on page 4. Now to the picture is that of President Muhammadu Buhari right and Vice President Yemi Osinbajo at the presidential villa yesterday. Beside the picture, some persons sat on APC report on restructuring. This is from Osoba. And the story starts from the front page, continues on page 7. Below the picture, no political influence on our business. Intels clarifies. See details on page 13. We are proud of Sam Nda Isaiah's role in advancing development. This is coming from the Kaduna State Governor El Rufai. And now to the bottom strip stories. APC, PDP trade tackles over 2023. Details on page 4. And on page 9, NAV kills cause of bandits in Kaduna. Community policing will fortify security operations. Details on page 10. And to the last story on Leadership newspaper. Zamfara, Borno go after substandard schools. See details on page 12. We move to New Telegraph newspaper, and I'll take it from the top above the masthead. How airlines, aviation firms shared federal government's 5 billion naira bailout. The kickers: Air Peace, Asman, Dana top beneficiaries. Travel agencies get 196 million naira. Car hire operators receive 100 million naira. The story starts from the front page and continues on page 4. Below the masthead, World Bank cuts Nigerians' 2021 growth forecast. The details on page 25. And on page 6, Intel's false Atiku denies political influence on business. Ex-Finbank MD Oke Nwosu jailed 3 years for 18 billion naira theft. The details can be found on page 27. And on page 25, paternity scandal. FCMB MD goes on leave as probe gets underway. We move to the lead story on New Telegraph newspaper. Labour, MAN, LCCI, PDP reject electricity tariff hike. The kickers, consumers pay more as discos begin new price regime. NLC, Nigerians under yoke of excessive charges. And coming from TUC, unfriendly policies will cripple economy. See the details on pages 3 and 6. And the picture, we've seen that on the Blueprint newspaper. Below the picture, 2023, APC mocks PDP's bid to regain power. Will vote party that seats presidency to Southeast, coming from the Igbo leaders. APC has packed on power shift, says Osoba. The story can be found on page 4. And to the last story, long-time obesity raises health risks. That is a study and can be found on page 26. Next is Nigerian Tribune, and I'll take it from the lead story. It says electricity rates adjusted by 2 naira to 4 naira per kilowatt per hour. Electricity rates adjusted by 2 naira to 4 naira per kilowatt per hour. This is coming from the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. The kickers, LCCI, pricing should be strategic. And from PDP, hike insensitive anti-people. From Kiyamu, NERC's position not reflective of federal government organized labor agreement. The details can be found on page 6. Beside the picture, how my only child was killed by police, woman tells Ekiti panel. The details can be found on page 26. And on page 29, why Southeast governors boycotted Igbo bipartisan meeting, coming from Umahi. Apprentice disappears with master's 3-month-old baby in Ondo State. Details on page 5. And now to the picture is that of a cross-section of community police and special constabulary officers during their passing out parade at the police college in Lagos. This happened on Tuesday. Below the picture, COVID-19, 731 batch B NYSC members test positive, coming from PTF. The kickers, Buhari okay's oxygen plant in each state. COVID certificate a must for future travels, immigration boss. Nigeria engages China on vaccine. See the details on page 2. Below the masthead, 2021 budget. Oil prices hit $53 per barrel as OPEC freezes production. The story is on page 7. And on page 29, UI defense of Obaseki certificate at tribunal. Page 7, no political influence in our business decisions, coming from Intels. And above the masthead, Ibadan Mogajis, Amotekun boss parley over crimes in Oyo. Another farmer kidnapped in Ibarapa. The story can be found on pages 26 and 27. The last story on Nigerian Tribune. And SARS. Lagos pays for forensic examination of Lekki toll gate. See the details on page 26. All right, we'll pause here to observe a short break. Newspaper headline continues with more stories from other dailies. Please stay tuned.
Every person who is charged with a criminal offense is entitled to defend himself in person or by a legal practitioner of his own choice.
Remember that an individual is entitled to remain silent.
Every citizen in Nigeria is entitled to maintain a private life.
You are approaching a military checkpoint or a police checkpoint without knowing that it is against or it offends them and subject you to a frog jump. That is wrong.
Thanks for staying tuned. We continue with this day newspaper, and I'll take it from the lead story. Osoba. We agreed during APC merger talks that South will produce next president. The kicker accuses party chiefs of frustrating restructuring. Urges unity in Southwest to get party's ticket. The story starts from the front page. It continues on page 10. And on page 5, at last, federal government 774,000 job for youth scheme takes off. Federal government 774,000 jobs for youth scheme takes off. The details on page 5. And now to the picture is tagged keeping the president in the loop. From left to right, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and President Muhammadu Buhari at a briefing on the process achieved thus far in the implementation of economic sustainability plan in Abuja. This happened yesterday. And below the masthead, WHO endorses Pfizer vaccine for COVID-19 immunization in Nigeria. The kicker, Nigeria opens talks with China on vaccine acquisition. Federal government to revoke visas of errant visitors. The story starts from the front page, continues on page 9. Above the masthead, Labour, OPS, orders kick as federal government reviews electricity tariffs. The kicker, tariff increases to continue till discos cover costs, says NERC, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. The story starts from the front page, continues on page 9. And now to the last story on this day newspaper. OPEC mandates Nigeria to cut production by 939,000 per barrel in 3 months. See details on page 8. We move to Daily Trust newspaper, and I'll take it below the masthead. 2023. Igbo leaders demand presidential ticket from APC, PDP. Details on page 4. Hundreds flee as Boko Haram attacks Borno village. 731 batch B corps members contract COVID-19, coming from PTF. And the lead story, concerns over fresh electricity tariff hike. The kickers, as Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission okays increase. Our businesses suffering, coming from manufacturers and artisans. We'll resist it. This is coming from NLC. PDP asks Buhari to resign decision. That story can be found on page 5. And the picture is that of representative of Lagos State Governor, Mr. Tayo Ayinde, inspecting the community police and special constabulary officers during their passing out parade at Police College, Ikeja, Lagos. This happened yesterday. And below the picture, COVID-19 vaccine, strategic leaders, health workers on federal government's priority list. See details on page 4. And now to the bottom strip stories. Why I created app for train e-ticketing, coming from a journalist. And the story can be found on page 12. Police detain mom for maltreating daughter over early marriage. And the last story, ex-Finbank MD, 3 others jailed over 18 billion naira theft. All right, that is it on Daily Trust newspaper. We move to Nigerian Pilot newspaper. Now take it below the masthead. APC, PDP, bicker over stolen trillions. The story can be found on page 5. And on that same page, Showore, Revolution Now convener, brought to court in handcuffs. Now to the lead story. Outrage. The kickers, as NERC, that is the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, approves hike in electricity tariffs. Backdates customers tariff order to September 1st, 2020. NLC rejects hike, accuses federal government of deceit, insensitivity. And coming from PDP, its anti-people will worsen hardship. See details on page 8. And the picture is that of Omoyele Showore, the Revolution Now convener, arriving court yesterday in handcuff. Below the picture, Nigeria in talks with China on COVID-19 vaccine. This is coming from Uyima. The story can be found on page 9. Now to the bottom strip stories. Ogoni cleanup, deceptive, politically motivated. This is coming from Governor Wike. And the story can be found on page 7. On that same page, nude party. Property had no building permit. On page 5, Nigeria owes World Bank, IMF, AFDB $31.98 billion. This is coming from DMO. Page 35, who replaces IGP Adamu as he bows out next month? To find out who gets the Nigerian pilot and see the details on page 35. On page 10, magistrate collapses during protest over unpaid salary arrears. The last story on page 5, Nigeria's growth to resume at 1.1% in 2021, says World Bank. Next is People's Daily, and I'll take it below the masthead. PDP rejects hike in electricity tariff. Details on page 5. And now to the lead story. Buhari, sustainable development impossible without adequate. Let's take that story again. Buhari, sustainable development impossible without adequate infrastructure. That story is on page 8. And below the picture, how CBN intervention spurs return of pyramids in Nigeria. See details on page 19. And now to the bottom strip stories on page 3. Fire destroyed 635 million naira property in Kano State in 2020. Page 4. NGO says 602 journalists died of COVID-19 in 2020. Katsina government insists no ransom paid for Kankara school boys release. See details on page 2. And on page 7, woman loses 4-year-old marriage due to drunkenness. That's the last story on People's Daily. We move to sports update on page 54 of Vanguard newspaper. Igalo attracts interest from Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Malcolmines shine at Jaws Polo Tournament. Malcolmines shine at Jaws Polo Tournament. Liverpool moved to sign Alaba from Bayern Munich. Solskjaer wants laurels to show for Man United's progress. Sport Minister Dare celebrates Chukwu at 70. On the 17th AFCON qualifying, Eagles battle Cote d'Ivoire for 3 points in Lomé. Joshua, I just want to fight Fury. And the last story on page 54. Mercy, it's an honor to make 750 caps for Barca. Now we go to the back page of Vanguard newspaper on sport. We have this contract extension. Ramos turns down Real Madrid. All right. Then we have these features for today. EFL Cup, Man United versus Man City. That's coming up 8:45 p.m. And La Liga, Athletic Bilbao versus Barcelona. That is coming on 9 p.m. We have other features here: Serie A, League One, CAF Champions League. We have the CAF Confederation Cup. When you get the Vanguard Sports, you get the time they will be played. And we have this result: EFL Cup, Tottenham 2, Brentford 0, Copa del Rey, Cordoba 1, Getafe 1, UD Ibiza 5, Celta Vigo 2, and other results are there. All right, that is it on a sports update. That is the much we can bring to you on this edition of Newspaper Headlines. Join us on Friday for a fresh edition. Job 8:7 says, your beginning will seem humble, so prosperous will your future be. The Lord will make this year 2021 prosperous for us all in Jesus' name. Amen. Remain blessed and bye for now.
Away well, and Usain Bolt now trying to catch him, and now Bolt surging to the lead. Stung by the shot. Sergei Lebedev. The Chesney claws it away.
Every person who is charged with a criminal offense is entitled to defend himself in person or by a legal practitioner of his own choice.
Remember that an individual is entitled to remain silent.
Every citizen in Nigeria is entitled to maintain a private life.